Well, I'll be. Looks like you're my more colorful brother from a different mother. Did you say mother? Oh, seems I touched a sore spot. Spot jokes. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Today we're taking a look at Miles Morales' all-new arch-enemy from Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Will this figure hit the spot, or will it leave me feeling empty? Starting off with the packaging, and this blister card looks the same as all the other Across the Spider-Verse figures we've looked at so far. Maybe you can spot a difference. I'll see myself out. Across the Spider-Verse, incorrectly labeled as Part 1 up top, Miles bounding at the viewer, Gwen coming between he and Miguel, Legends logo glitching out, and the figure stepping out of a portal. On the back, we see the other figures in the wave. So far, we've looked at Miles, Miguel, and Peter B. I don't know if I'm going to pick up anybody else, but if I do, it'll definitely be Hobie. Otherwise, we see a picture of Jonathan on the back. Get it? Because his name is Jonathan on Johnny on the spot. Just like Kingpin's Collider, my puns are reaching critical mass. So let's wrap this up and say that for packaging, Spot gets 1 whole point. Moving on to presentation, and Spot stands at just over 6.5 inches. If you ever wanted to see Mr. Babinski from Coraline dressed in a Dalmatian Zentai suit, this is the figure for you, weirdo. I'll level with you. Seeing this action figure was how I learned what Spot looked like in the movie. My reaction? Okay. But then I saw the movie and fell in love with this character. I assume a lot of other people had the same experience because he was warming the pegs for months. As soon as the movie came out though, and they disappeared. Considering that his whole arc in the movie is people not taking him seriously and that driving him insane, it's kinda perfect. Granted, it's a bit more unsettling when you realize that this is his skin, so he's pretty much naked. Just gonna flip him around a second so you can let that sink in. Also, as we can see, mine has a bit of a chunk taken out of it. On that subject, the spots are actually very nice and crisp. In fact, near as I can tell, there isn't any paint slop whatsoever on this figure. One thing that I will say is kind of odd is the texture. This is a very high gloss figure, and touching him almost feels like a whiteboard. On that subject, he's not entirely accurate to what we saw in the film. In the movie, he actually had blue sketch line work running throughout his body, giving him an incredible sense of depth, but I honestly don't know how they could have accomplished that here without it looking really, really bad. Also, if this is his skin, does that mean he doesn't have any toes? That said, of all of his holes, he does have a couple that really do bother me. The ones at the bottom of his feet. They're so shallow that they're functionally useless. Figures that the only actual holes on the Spot don't work. I feel like most of this section was just me dangling the figure in front of the camera like a set of keys, but that's partly due to the fact that there just isn't a lot to him. Which isn't to say I think Hasbro did a bad job. In fact, I don't think they could have done it better. I'd go so far as to call this figure a hole-in-one. For presentation, I'm giving the Spot 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and I'm really impressed with how well the standard Marvel Legend articulation scheme has been adapted to this unusual body. From the top, and his head's in a ball joint and a disc hinge, up this much, this far down, no real tilt, but all the way around. Swivel hinge arms raise up this far. He's got a totally tubular bicep swivel. Pinless double jointed elbows allow him to face palm, and swivel hinge wrists. Moving to the middle, and all of Spot's torso articulation is from this diaphragm joint. He can arch back this far, which looks really weird. Oh look, another hole. And he can hunch forward this far, which isn't so much a hunch as much as it's a shift. He also might want to consider consulting a chiropractor. Jonathan does, however, get a pretty fair amount of tilt and twist. Moving on down, and Spot has ball jointed hips. He can kick this high, but he can only split this wide. Traversing down the leg, and he has thigh cut, the most perfectly bent knees I've ever seen, and ankles that can hinge, and just like my interest in this figure once I actually saw the movie, pivot. I will say the more extreme the pose you put him in, the easier he is to stand. Given his unique proportions, I'm impressed with just how well articulated he is. For posability, I'm giving the Spot 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and Spot might just be the best of the wave. First of all, he comes with a pair of fists. They definitely draw a lot less attention to themselves in the open hands. With a couple of other figures we've looked at in the wave, Hasbro would have stopped there, but not this time. He also comes with a portable hole with Miles' head and shoulders sticking out of it. Paint on the eyes is nice and crisp, by the way. He also has another hole with one of Miles' hands coming out of it, and a clear base to mount them on. This is such a fun addition. I'd put it up there with the energy effects that they gave Havoc last year. Not to be mean, but this is the kind of thing I'd expect out of an import company. The fact that Hasbro Hasbro did it, especially at a time when they've been cutting back on value, gives me a lot of hope. If we could finally get a comic version of the Spot, I'd love it if they did something similar there. The only other accessory I could possibly want would be an alternate head with Spider-Man's fist coming out of it. Talk about having a head like a hole! But playability is more than even really cool accessories. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting with Spot's arch nemesis, and here we have Miles as he appears in Into the Spider-Verse. Before releasing the more movie-accurate version, Marvel Legends came out with this one from a 2-pack, but then Hasbro made this basic version ahead of Across the Spider-Verse, before giving us this proper Marvel Legend, which we've previously looked at. For a couple of other versions of the character though, and here's a basic comic-style Miles, and the Gamerverse version, which is my favorite Miles in my collection. As for Miles' friend Gwanda, and here's a Spider-Gwen that came with the Into the Spider-Verse 2-pack, here's the proper Marvel Legend version from 2021, and then here's the basic version from Across. I'm still on the fence if I'm going to get the Marvel Legend one. Expanding on the Spider-Verse, and here's Spider-Ham, who was teased at the end of the second movie to come back for number 3, along with Spider-Man Noir, who, like Spider-Gwen, came packed with his own version of Spider-Ham. For the other antagonist of Across the Spider-Verse, and here we have the basic version of Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, and then here's the Marvel Legends version, which, despite the better articulation, I just don't like as much. For another Spider-Verse villain, and here we have Prowler from the first movie, but for just a general animated villain, and here's Doc Ock from the Aunt May 2-pack. Hope you don't mind, but to make life easier, I left off the tentacles. Until such a time as I get the movie version, and here's the comic version of Spider-Punk, and the comic version of Scarlet Spider, which, if you've seen the movie, you'd know is honestly perfect. That said, for the OG Spider-Man, and here we have Peter B. Parker. Here's Peter B. from the Across the Spider-Verse wave, but still based on his appearance from Into the Spider-Verse, and the basic Peter B. from Across the Spider-Verse also based on Into. Really hoping we get a proper bathrobe version of him with little Mayday. That said, for some other classic Spideys, and here we have Spider-Man from the Renew Your Vows 2-pack, and the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends 3-pack. For a roll-to-scale comparison, here's a Spot with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. Oh my gosh, just like me, it looks like you have a bunch of extra holes. Could we not talk about my holes? Also, between this and Quantumania, what's with all the Marvel movies lately talking about holes? You could say it's a deep topic. Because of how stylized he is, there's no way this Spot's going to work outside of your Spider-Verse collection, but honestly, that's fine. The figure does a great job of representing that movie and has some cool accessories to boot. For playability, I'm giving the Spot 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. After all, I don't want you to burn a hole in your wallet. Spot's available right now and retails for $24.99. As a new sculpt of a character who's never appeared in Marvel Legends before and with so many accessories, I'd say that's a whole lot of value. For price, I'm giving the Spot 1 whole point for a grand total of 5 out of 5. All this talk about spots and holes reminds me, I really need to order Chasm. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.